Hey everyone, welcome to Wildlife Inspired. I'm Scott Keys. Now, today we're not talking about wildlife photography. I am going to do a little bit of a learning sharing about a Z series, my Z6 II as a webcam. Now, if anybody is searching Z6 II as a webcam or Z series as a webcam, please watch this. I think you're going to get some information here. It's about 15, 20 minutes long. I'm going to tell you about connecting the camera to the computer beyond the basics. You'll see that out there, but what you won't see is some information about live streaming and the webcam utility from Nikon. You also won't see a ton of information about powering the device. And those are the two critical things that I learned in this process. So, uh, why a Z6? So I'm going to show you real quick. And it's not just Z6, any good camera body, DSLR or mirrorless, a modern camera that's got HDMI outputs or it has software that you can convert in camera. In the case of Canon and Sony, I think they've got built-in software that you can download and run as a webcam. So very easy. Nikon also has that, but there's some downsides to that. But using any mirrorless or DSLR is generally going to give you better quality. It's just going to cost a little bit. Well, it's going to cost a lot more. Let me show you what $100 camera. This is one of the best rated webcams out there. This is a Logitech C920 or 920 something. I'm not a technical guy. I don't remember all the numbers, but what I do know is what looks good and what looks bad. And I'm very much about trying things for myself and figuring out what works. So if at any point in this video, if there's something that I miss that you say like, oh, that's wrong, put it in the comments. This is to help somebody else in the process. Look at the difference though between this one and now the exposure is coming back a little bit. Look, for a webcam, this is not bad, but a considerable difference to this, both in terms of the dynamic range, in terms of the focus. So this is I'm using a 17 to 35 millimeter 2.8 lens on a Nikon D4S. So I've got a nice sensor, a great low light sensor, which I like. By the way, the Z6 II, also a very good low light sensor. So that's why, to me, you don't need all the pixels of a Z7, uh, but the low light capability is really what I'm looking for. So that on these videos, even though there appears to be light in the room, it's not as much as you think. And I'm probably shooting this at ISO 800 ish, 1000 ish, but on a different camera, it may not look quite as good. And again, if you don't have, I have a softbox here, a fill light there, a light overhead. If you don't have all that lighting set up, it may require a little bit more in terms of the camera. It may struggle a little bit more in terms of looking grainy or noisy. So any mirrorless body, modern or any modern DSLR is probably going to go look much, much better than any webcam that you're using, but at a cost. If you were to buy a used body for this, you might be able to get an older D3 or D4 for Nikon, and it may function. A D500 will function as a webcam, but there are some downsides to some of these bodies. And I tried the D500. I had a problem with it timing out. It would literally, just for video, it would cut out after about 10 minutes, and it was not usable. There are some functions that you can try to override. There's standby timers. So whatever camera body you're using, check things like standby timers and make sure that they are turned off. Those timers or menu timers or live view timers for the D4S, you do have to turn off the live view timer, or else it will also time out after about 10 minutes. I've had this running for well over an hour sometimes, and it seems to do fine. The Z body I've had run for several hours, and it does fine. But we'll talk about powering that soon. So give me a second to get to powering. So how do I get the signal from my Z6 into my computer? And I'm going to switch over here and show you a couple things. So pretty simple, but doesn't really work as well as you'd like. There's the weather sealing here. You're going to lift this up. You're going to take a USB, and this one's to a USB-A. So this is called a USB-C. It's the smaller, and it's also faster. Plug it in here, and then you plug the other one, and you've got a camera. So I'm going to plug that one right in there. And it should, if I'm turned on here and I've got it set to movie, okay, I should be able to go in here and find it. So I can go in, and I'm using a program called XSplit, which is what I use to stream, but OBS is very similar. And I should be able to go in here and find it using a utility that comes with the camera. So it's called, or I'm sorry, it does not come with the camera. You have to download it. It's called the Nikon Web Utility. And if you do it right, it should pull up. And there it is. Let me resize this. So it actually worked, right? Like this is my webcam. There I am. So I am using this now as a webcam through the utility. I've got a lens, by the way. I just put a manual focus lens on here just to have something. So there, I'm focusing on a couple things. Now, the one problem with this, and I'll show you real quick, is if I want to do this again in another scene and add the video source. So I'm going to create a new scene. I'm doing this in XSplit. When I go to create another scene and bring this device in, can't do it. So you'll see on my screen now, it says Webcam Utility. One of the downsides of this utility, and there's a couple I'm going to talk about now. And let me just show you what you're going to see. I don't think I can bring it up here. It will not show. Oh, you can see it here. Okay. Webcam Utility. It will not show more than one scene. So if you're using a streaming service like OBS, XSplit, there's several of them out there. It will not show more than one scene. I cannot make this happen. I've tried it in several different times. I tried searching on the internet. Nobody talks about this. It is a huge downside of this software. Now, this is version 1, February 2021. So maybe they're going to fix this. But for right now, it doesn't do that. The other thing is the streaming software, the web utility from Nikon, seems to only go up to 15 frames per second. So when I was streaming live, I noticed I am so choppy and I could not get the frame rate. I went into every setting. I promise you, I went into every setting possible in XSplit. I did the same in OBS. I adjusted the frame rate up. I made sure the camera was sending it out at 30 or 60. I tried everything I could. It would not give me more than 15 frames a second. So those are two pretty big downsides. And the third one is the resolution through Nikon Web Utility is not as good as it is other ways. So the first way to get this Z series, plug the computer in to the USB-C, to the USB-A, download the web utility. In theory, it will work. And you could record videos with it, but it does not work well for live streaming. And note that you will likely be limited to 15 frames a second unless they upgrade that. So that's number one. All right. Are there other ways to get that out? And yes, there's a better way to do it. So I'm going to show you down here again. You're going to notice the first slot I used was down here with the USB-C. And right underneath it is an HDMI out. And you can easily take that HDMI out and run it to your computer. However, and this is a big however, you can't just put it in. You can't just take an HDMI and plug it into a computer and have it work. You need a converter, or what they would call a capture card. So what I'm going to do real quick is just show you, if you were to Google video capture card, all right, and I've got just a Google search that came up. You're going to see Elgato video capture card. These are all devices, and they go from $15 up to hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Essentially, and I'll show you on here. This is a mirror image, by the way, so I apologize. It's backwards. This is the one that I used first. It's called the CamLink. And very simply, I'll show you down here. You plug it into this side, your HDMI. This goes into your computer, and you're done. Everything is built in. There's no extra software, and it works beautifully. When I did that, I am now able to get to, and I'm recording this on my XSplit broadcaster, but I'm just using the recording function. I can easily now switch scenes from here to here, any of the scenes that I want. I've got 10 scenes set up in this broadcaster. OBS is the same way. And the video carried over from scene to scene, unlike it did with the Nikon utility. So I had to bail on the utility. I had to get a video capture card. And what I ultimately ended up with is something called an A10 Mini. So this is the from Blackmagic. You could see it's available on B&H. I do a lot of shopping there, or Amazon. And this is a switcher. Basically, it allows you to take 4 HDMIs and convert them into one output signal to the computer. So down the road, if I want to add more cameras, and I'm going to put two cameras into, I have two cameras set up into this system, but if I wanted to put more cameras in down the road, I could do that. Rather than each camera buy $100 video capture card and have four different USB ports taken up, now it's going to be up to four devices with one output going into the computer. So it'll clean all that up and allow me some flexibility. So $300 versus 100, but it's a one-time purchase and I'm basically building to upgrade for the future. This device gets rave reviews. I've just started playing around with it, but it seems to work very, very, very well. So I can actually switch cameras on the fly and create scenes and still learning it, but I think this is a good device. If not, I would say this one worked really, really, really well. So this is also a really good piece of software. But again, if you want to try a cheaper one, it's on you. Now, note that the cost now. So we have a body. If we're using that Z series, which is what got me started on this whole thing, $2,000 body. The lens up there I bought used for $500 maybe. You may be able to get away with a Z50. Um, so save some money there. Maybe you buy a used DSLR, but if you're using the Z6 and that Nikon utility, it is critical to understand that there are some limitations with it, and this is how I worked around. So that takes you through video. How do I get video from here into the computer? I went with HDMI and a video capture card. You could certainly do it through the software, but if you're live streaming, I'm going to tell you try to do this because the HDMI is the way to go. All right, that's the first situation I ran into. The second was, how do I power this thing? Z6 uses a ENL ENEL15 battery. I think I got it right. Which the camera is a little power hungry, and that battery, even the newest version, I wasn't comfortable running it for more than an hour. So my live streams typically go over an hour. And the worst thing you want is in the middle of a live stream, your camera goes down, audio's still working, but the camera's not working. You've got to go get another battery and live switch it. So that's not a bad thing. That's not a good situation. You can get a battery grip. So they make a grip for this, which will put two batteries in. Let me get back to my big camera here. All right. So two batteries can go in, one from this side, one from this side. And that allows you to do what they would call like a hot swap. So you take one out and put it in, but the other battery is powering the camera. So in theory, it never runs out as long as one is charging and you keep replacing it. But do you really want to hot swap in the middle of a live stream? So now you've got your camera set up there. Battery looks like it's running low, or you're worried about it. You're going to get up in the middle, switch your batteries out. It's just not ideal. So what you really need is continuous power. And to get continuous power, there's a few ways to do it. You start with this adapter. There are third parties for this, but I'm going to tell you now. All of the Nikons were notoriously finicky with batteries. They didn't like third-party batteries. So if you take a third-party battery and put it in here, camera just doesn't recognize it. It won't work. So you almost are stuck with their product. So the adapter, this just gets power into it doesn't get it into your camera. It starts to get it into your camera. It's like phase one, because then you need this adapter on top. So you need this one called the EP5B. So together, you're $150 in. And this one has been back ordered for a while. I had trouble getting this. So continuous power, it works. You put it right into the battery slot here, and it's done. It'll run forever. It'll never run out. But it's going to cost you another $150 to power. There's one other option to power, and that is, and I'll go over here now to show you, if I choose not to, which I'm not going to, if I choose to use the HDMI as my output to web stream or to broadcast, this frees up the USB-C slot. And a USB-C slot can also be used as a power source with one caveat. You need enough juice. I'm not uh, I'm not great with electricity and power, but I can tell you if you plug this into USB A, so if you take, I'll show you the cord here, what that means. If you take this USB-C and plug it in, and then this goes to the computer, this end will not provide enough juice to power the camera. So what you need is a USB-C to a USB-C. So it's the same size. The other thing you need is a source that can give it enough power. So in this case, I bought this. And on here, there's two letters that say PD. And that indicates that this device will give enough power through that USB-C to make the camera charge and run. Now, it is my belief that it does not run directly off of that power input. And here's what I believe happens, because when I took the battery out and tried to run it just through here, it didn't work. It required a battery to be in. I think what's actually happening is it's powering off of the battery and it's constantly recharging from the USB-C so that in theory, it never runs out. It's just constantly replenishing itself. I have run a live stream test where I just turned the camera on and worked for a couple hours and the battery never ran out. I think it may have gone down like 1 bar in 2 hours. So that's why I believe it is draining the battery and then refreshing the battery at the same time, not powering directly from the USB-C. If you know the answer to that, you can put it down in the comments as well. So the two learnings that I took away from this. Number one, the webcam utility is not good. It's very limited for live streaming, and while it is an option, if you're live streaming, especially, it's not great. And that frame rate, and if anybody knows how to get that web utility to have a faster frame rate on either OBS or XSplit, put it in the comments because I tried for days and I cannot get it to do. And I've tried every setting. And yes, I know you can go into video menus and adjust frame rates. I've done it on the camera side, I've done it on the software side. It just didn't work. So that was limiting. And then the resolution output is a little bit lower. With the HDMI, which is the way I went, you get the better resolution, you get seamless integration into both OBS or XSplit. So the live streaming is really good, the video quality is very good, and the frame rate goes up to 60 frames per second. For this video, I'm recording at 30. So if I look a little choppy, it's because I'm at 30. And I do that because when I live stream, it's not about me being a finished product. I'm actually showing a lot of other photographers and a lot of other work in Photoshop, and I want to save as much bandwidth, and I don't want to strain the computer, so I lower the frame rate a little bit to try to make up what I might be using in terms of computer power. I'm Skyping at the same time, so I just have a lot going on. So my fear is that at 60 frames per second, maybe it will buffer or slow down the stream. So that's why I chose 30. 30 gives you a nice fluid motion without being choppy, but it's not quite as smooth as that 60 frames, which is the ideal. All right, so that's what I learned about the video output. What I learned about the power sources, you can go with a standard battery, but you may run out if you're live streaming. If you're setting up videos, it can be frustrating. Every 20, 30, 40 minutes, changing out batteries. In a live stream situation, you must have some type of continuous power. If you use continuous power, do not go third party because I'm telling you right now, it don't work. So go with the Nikon version, but you may have trouble getting it because this stuff is on back order. The other option is to charge, which is what I do, charge through the USB-C here, run the HDMI here, get a Cam Link or some video capture card that you like, or the A10 Mini, get something that works really well, and that is going to give you the best results. I'm actually going to switch over to my Z6 II now, and I'm going to show you the video quality. So this is the D4S, and I'm going to pause, and I'll give you the Z6 now. Okay, and now I'm on the Z6 II. So this is the D4. One of the things, it's a beast of a body. It's very heavy, so you got to have a pretty good support up there to hold it. The Z6 is much lighter. The Z6 or Z6 II or Z7. Again, I don't think you need the resolution of a Z7 for live streaming. It's only going to go out at normally at 1080. You may have a 4K capability, but there's plenty of resolution in these cameras, especially if you're doing tight shots, mostly of your head. What is more important to me is kind of that low light factor. So the Z6 and Z6 II are better low light sensors. The Z7s are better high resolution sensors. I don't know. I don't know that it's apples to apples. The exposure might be a little bit different. The color temperature, I tried to dial it in the same. It might be a little different, but essentially you get the sense of what the camera does. One of the things I will tell you is this has a nice wide focusing feature. So the D4 I would move, and you probably saw it in the video. Every once in a while, it would quick, try to focus. which is great for wildlife photography and sports, but it's not great for webcams. Webcams, you want slow and steady focus, and this one actually does a pretty good job. It's got facial recognition. It'll kind of track your face, so you could put it onto one, and if I come in, it should move. It's not jumping off real fast. If I were to do this with the DSLR, at least the D4S, you would have noticed it would have jumped a lot during that process. So this camera is to me, a much better webcam than the D4S, but the video quality is very comparable. It's just this one is more designed for video and much more functional. So when you go through the settings menus and stuff like that, it is designed to do video. The D4S is a video capable camera, but really not designed to do it. It doesn't have a touch screen interface. It doesn't have a flip screen. So there's certainly some downsides to it. So anyway, I hope you like the video. I hope somebody out there found it helpful because it took me a lot of time and energy to kind of figure out those two situations, how to get it streamed out properly at 1080p, 30 to 60 frames per second with good video quality, and then also how to power it and what another option is, or a couple options for powering it. So hope everybody has a great day, and I will talk to you soon.